We're long overdue. It's been far too long since we've talked a little bit about what's going on in the world of Duke basketball recruiting. We've got some class of 2025 updates for you. Brandon Jenkins stops by. A really fun episode of Locked On Blue Devils starts right now.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome on into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. So great to have you here with us on Thursday, July 18th, 2024. Locked On Blue Devils, of course, is your one-stop shop for everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. On today's show, we've got to talk about the class of 2025 in the Duke basketball recruiting world. We have not spent a whole lot of time talking about them in a little bit, so we'll dive back in with our good pal Brandon Jenkins from 24/7 Sports. We'll get some updates. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Make sure that you also check our show out on YouTube each and every day. Like these videos, share them with your friends, and most importantly, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, continuing to grow the numbers each and every day, and your support means so much to us. I'm on X at _JJ_Jackson_, and you can follow the show there as well at LO_Blue Devils. So without further ado, I'm really excited to welcome him in. Here is Brandon Jenkins from 24/7 Sports, back with us once again, the National Basketball Scout and Recruiting Analyst for the company there. B. Jenkins, it's good to see you once again. How are you, pal?
Busy. These live peers are kicking my behind. But I'm just happy to join the show and be on here once again.
Absolutely, man. I can imagine it's a little busy this time of year. It's good to kind of get some updates as we'll kind of talk about this class of 2025. Our world has been so consumed by Cooper Flagg and what he's done with Team USA and welcoming in the newest freshman to Duke basketball. But recruiting never stops, man. All of a sudden, your world is on to the class of 2025, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's the excitement with it, because while y'all are dealing with who's generating buzz during the off season, we're hopefully looking at potential Blue Devils on the road. So it's exciting. It's intriguing just seeing these dudes build their profiles and seeing which ones end up hosting the largest recruitment and helping themselves the most throughout the course of the summer.
Yeah. Before we get into any specifics and any 2025 players, I do want to give you the floor once again, because I teased Cooper Flagg, and people have loved every second that I've had conversations about him once again. I got to hear from you, because you were on him early. You've been on the show several times over the last few years telling me, JJ, who's going to be the real deal once he gets to Durham. Now the whole world is seeing it.
Right.
Are you at least a little bit surprised by what he was doing with the select team?
Kind of. I'm always surprised when younger players are able to showcase their talents against, grown men, even whether it be like just playing against NBA players or playing at the college level. It just surprises me how good these dudes are at such a young age, no matter who the kid is. But, at the end of the day, when you think about it, this dude is incredible. He does everything at a completely tenacious rate. I mean, he just does everything. His timing when he blocks shots, he can pass off a live dribble. He can make jumpers. What's so crazy? People knock him because he's not a score first minded person. I'll tell you this, he can get his shot off whenever he wants to. So if he just up and decided that he wanted to be somebody who just wants to get buckets, I think he's completely talented enough and skilled enough too. So, I mean, I just don't really think that there's a significant weakness in his game. And that's why he was able, to be comfortable around, the best players in basketball. And, people in Durham should be really excited for what he brings to the table, because he does it on both ends and he does it in such an exciting fashion. So, I was surprised just because of how young he is. But then, when you get 30 seconds to think about it, he's one of those ones. And, he belongs amongst the best, and he showcases talent when given the opportunity.
And yeah, Brandon, he's 17, right? Like you told us before, he should be one of these class of 2025 guys that we're talking about right now, but he decides to come to school a year early. It pays off. Really do think he's going to have a big season for Duke and likely on his way to being the number one pick in next summer's draft. So as we do talk about the recruiting world in the class of 2025. I want to dive into some of the big names. The Boozer twins have certainly headlined Duke conversations for a long while, and we'll get to them in just a little bit. But I'm sitting here ranking or looking, and when you go through the rankings in the top 25 world, as we sit here today on July 18th, Brandon, in the top 20 that you guys have over there with your 247 Sports composite rankings, nobody has committed anywhere. And that just really jumps out to me because over the last few years, it always feels like there's one top player that's already kind of jumped the board and decided, this is where I'm going to school. I'm done. It doesn't matter going into my senior season. That's not the case. I don't cover this as closely as you do at all, but that jumped out to me. Is this a little bit of an outlier that nobody in the class of 2025 at the top has made these decisions yet?
I guess you could say so, just because, the transfer portal has affected the high school game to the point where high schoolers have a sense of urgency and when they want to make their picks. But also there's some that just feel like they're talented enough that they want to see how rosters fold or rosters turn out, throughout the transfer portal, that they want to make a late decision. They want to wait till May. I know Braden Burries has kind of been rumored. And this is a kid who's been recruited by Duke. He's been rumored not only to reclass, but also to stay in his class and wait late just to see if he'll have that opportunity for a school to wait on him to see if he'll have the ability to play early and often and through mistakes. It is kind of surprising because we've seen in recent years kids kind of get their recruitments, completed in a quick fashion. But now we'll see who decides to utilize the leverage that they think that they have. But also, after Peach Jam, I have talked to a few kids, and they are in the process of dwindling things down as they're, going into their senior year. So, the best is yet to come in terms of, who is receiving who at this period.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So we've got Peach Jam going on right now. It's going to finish up on Sunday. There's also the big Adidas event taking place in South Carolina too as we speak. Once these events come to a close, is a flurry coming? Not necessarily in regards to Duke. We'll get to that in a moment. But after these big events, what do you think we'll start to see some of those top players make their college picks? Or could this go towards that November signing period?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, just in our space and in our industry, we do look at this period, especially like after, the July live period's in as kind of the commitment period. Kids are starting to schedule their visits. Two dudes that are, on my watch right now is Jasper Johnson, a five-star shooting guard who can really score it. I think he's in the process of dwindling things down. He's taken a lot of visits over the course of his career, and I think he's ready to get this thing over with. And then Darius Acuff, who announced the top four, that has recently become a top three. I think he knocked UConn out, so now he's deciding between Kansas, Michigan, and I believe Arkansas. And so, those are the two dudes that are on my mind, and I think that they're going to lead the charge for a flurry of commitments, a flurry of list cuts that are going to take place, over the course of the next 2 to 3 months.
And I'm sure if I ask you the question in 2 weeks, man, there's going to be several more names where you're like, oh yeah, these are the next two dudes that are right around the corner from making the decision. So it does seem like once we get through this, we should see some of those decisions coming.
Absolutely.
I love it. All right, well, we got to take our first break. When we come back, let's talk about some of those Duke guys that John Shiner and his staff are recruiting, and we'll do that after this first time out on today's show. All right, Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. That's right, we love sports this time of year. However, there's just not too many to watch right now. When the sports aren't sportsing like we want them to, FanDuel lets you keep all the sports vibes going whenever you want. All you got to do is open the app and they'll find something for you. Dream up bets anytime that you want. Baseball, huge right now over the course of the summer. A lot of WNBA action. There are big boxing fights coming up this weekend. Jake Paul steps back into the ring, and FanDuel has it all. They're hooking up customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So right now, head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Let's keep rolling here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Brandon Jenkins is here with me again, the National Basketball Scout and Recruiting Analyst. All right, we're talking about Duke. They've got a massive freshman class on campus right now, gearing up for this 2024-2025 season. Nobody has committed yet for this class in particular. We often thought that it would be the class of Cooper Flagg. However, he makes the decision to come in a year early. And now we're talking a whole lot about the Boozer twins and where they stand with Duke. Obviously, their dad, a legend, a national champion with Duke basketball, Carlos Boozer, a great career rocking that number 4 jersey for the Blue Devils back at the turn of the century. Where do things stand right now, Brandon, with the Boozer twins?
Yeah, I think Duke has long been perceived the leader for this one, but Miami and Florida are making this a tough one for the Blue Devils to come up with. I think the long-term assumption has been that since, Carlos Boozer has played for Duke, that the Suns will be a lock to go there, and that is not the case. There's been a rumor or something in the air that's saying that the mom is the one to win over. And so with them being located in that Miami area, I think Miami and Florida definitely have action with them, and they're making it hard. They're making it hard for John Shire and Duke. I see their pitch just being to stay home and being the kids, but being the star of the shows in their first years. But the interesting part is, and our director of scouting, Adam Finkelstein, he mentioned this in a podcast that I overheard a couple of days ago. The interesting pitch is, they want to be their own player. Caden wants to be his own player, and Cameron wants to be his own player. And obviously, Cameron being the number 2 player in the class, he's projected to be a one and done, and he likely will be so. And it'll be interesting to see because Caden, he may not project to be that. Now, we can't project the future. There's been a long list of guys that we didn't think were one and dones that has shocked the world in the college game, and Caden can be one of those. But as of now, he doesn't project to be a one and done. So it'll be interesting to see, out of those 3 schools, what the pitch will be for Caden's long-term development and his plan. But yeah, it's not going to be an easy one for Duke. I think Todd Golden and Jim Larinaga, they are making their push, and they're making it hard on the Blue Devils.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you make there, because I know the Blue Devil staff probably does a little bit of reflecting right now, and many people in the circle thought that they would have Jared McCain back for a second season, but he absolutely tore it up in his one season at Duke, and he becomes one of the recent there in the line of one-and-done players for the Blue Devils. People might not have heard scouting reports lately on these 2 Boozer twins. Obviously, you've got Cameron, one of the top players in the entire class. Caden, a great basketball player in his own right. However, he's just a little further down, top 20, top 25. Still one of the best players in high school basketball out there right now. How do you describe their basketball games?
When you look at Cameron's game, and as I repeat, the number 2 player in the class who used to be number 1 in the class, you're looking at a dude that was just groomed for this. From the first time I watched him at an early age, you could just tell that his skill set separated himself from the rest of his peers. At about 6'9", he really is efficient from all areas of the floor in that half court. He can catch the ball. He's a great face-up floor man that can hit middies and three-point jumpers with regularity. He has a high motor. He pounds the glass. And, once he secures a defensive rebound, he's skilled enough to, bring the ball up on his own or make an accurate on-target outlet pass in a Kevin Love fashion. I think that's my biggest comparison for him because he's skilled with a great motor, but he's vertically more athletic than Kevin Love is. But the thing that I love about him the most is just that demeanor. You could just tell that he's the son of Carlos Boozer, just in terms of he never gets wavered. He just has a great feel for the game, and it's natural. And his skill level's there. The work ethic is evident when you watch him play because he just doesn't miss. He shot 70% from the field last year. I'm unsure of his stats this year, but I guarantee you he's incredibly dominant. So I'm pretty sure it's just as efficient as last year, as he just gets the job done. And then when we look at a player like Caden, as Cameron is a 6'9" power forward, Caden runs the show at the point guard position, and he's big. He's a big point guard. He's pushing about 6'5". He has some weight on him. He has a strong body. My knock on him is he doesn't shoot it as well as you would want a point guard to shoot it, but he has an exceptional feel for the game. He knows his personnel really well, and he can find his teammates on time and on target. I love watching him in transition because he just has this natural instinct, just to find his teammates for easy scores. And he just seems so selfless out there. And so obviously, like I said, his path may be different because Cameron projects to be a one and done, and we'll see. I mean, the thing that works in Caden's favor is his size per position. And it maybe if his jump shot can fall at the college level, then things change. But right now, that's his Achilles heel. But, when you look at both players and you want to compare them both, they have a tremendous resume of winning. They've won multiple state championships, and they're on par to win their third straight Peach Jam championship. They have done this at each level, 15U, 16U, and now they're trying to take on the challenge at 17U with the Knight Riders Elite program. So, you're getting winners, you're getting skilled basketball players, but you're also getting great minds, dudes that have naturally grew up in this game and are not wavered from adversity and know how to find ways to win.
Yeah, you look at the trajectory of them. Again, of course, you would expect Duke to be in the picture from day one. When your dad plays for Duke, it's probably the first team that you grow up knowing about and rooting for and experiencing and all of that thing. You mentioned the size, however, for Caden. And over the last few years, people have looked at them and said, wait a minute, they are twins, but Cameron's much bigger than Caden. It throws you off a little bit.
Right.
But to your point, within the last 6 months to a year, Caden's had a little growth spurt of his own because he's not this smaller point guard right now. What'd you say, 6'5"?
Yeah, I think he's pushing 6'5". I was in Kansas City and I walked up on him. I'm like, man, this is a big dude. Like, this is a big dude, and he's running point guard for y'all, and he does it well. He isn't flashy with it. He's very fundamentally sound, but at the end of the day, he knows what his job is on the floor, and he executes in a very efficient fashion. You could tell that he's the extension of a coach on the floor, and you could tell that he isn't worried about his own personal gain. He's out there to win games, and he does so by making the right basketball play at the right times.
What kind of timeline do you think that we're looking at for these guys? Is it soon? Is it going into the fall with their recruitment? What does it look like these next few weeks or months for the Boozer twins?
Yeah, I'm not sure on the timeline. They haven't really been the most open when it comes to.
I can imagine. Everybody wants to know.
Absolutely. But I have to imagine they are tired of these interviews. I mean, like they've been, being the son of Carlos Boozer, I'm pretty sure that they've been, approached by guys like me for 4 or 5 years now. So I'm pretty sure they want to get this thing over with. But I see them signing in the early signing period, not dragging this thing out because I think they know that the schools that they want in mind. They haven't announced the list cut of 3, but, Duke, Miami, and Florida, those are the perceived 3 leaders. And so, I could see them signing by November. But, if I was a guessing man, I think that they would go much earlier than that.
Well, we won't put you on the spot for a prediction here, but as we sit in the middle of July, should Duke fans feel pretty good? Like, be aware that Miami and Florida are making a strong push? Or how should Duke fans feel right now in terms of the Boozer twins?
I would say don't be as confident. Don't be as confident. Now, here, this is me speaking. I don't bet against Duke. Con Knepel's commitment came out of nowhere, and there's been a long list of other commitments that we just didn't see popping off on. The Brotherhood just took it over. So, I would not bet against Duke, but like Miami and Florida are serious contenders here. So I would just say be wary. But, if you're a fan of Duke, I mean, this is the Brotherhood. I mean, they have something to really, really fall back on here with their dad playing there. And I know that, the mom runs the show in the Recruitment, but the Brotherhood, has a long history of really taking over when it comes down to the nitty gritty. So, but I would say be wary.
Duke's got this hype video out that they are frequently resurfacing of Quinn Cook pregame one time saying Duke is never the underdog and hyping them up. And I think that could also be said in the recruiting world. So we'll see what kind of a push Duke can make there. All right. So you mentioned Cameron Boozer, the number 2 player in the class. That's not because Cooper Flagg left. That's because AJ DeBonsa comes into the picture and he takes over that top spot. Duke's name has been attached to him as well. I mean, what type of a player is AJ for folks who aren't familiar with his game?
Yeah, it's crazy. We just did an expert roundtable on 24/7 Sports, and they were asking me about, now that Cooper Flagg is out of the high school game, who could generate the most buzz at this level. And I think it's AJ, just because he is 6'9" with a true 3-level scoring package and he can get it off the bounce. And he kind of fits that mold of the, when you think of these big scoring wings, you think of Carmelo Anthony, the Tracy McGrady's, right now the Jason Tatums. I think his name is popping right now, fresh off an NBA championship and a fellow Duke alum. So when you think of big scoring wings, AJ DeBansa is one who projects in that limelight. I mean, and he already has generated buzz with what he's done at USA Basketball. I've seen him make an appearance on TNT with Inside the NBA. And I've also seen him, on video training with pros, like being around pros. So I think he's getting molded for this properly, and he's lived up to the hype. once again, he's very talented. He's fluid at 6'9". He can get his shot off whenever he wants, and he's supremely skilled in getting buckets. I think he's just a tough cover at his size and what he's able to do at it. So, yeah, that's the reason why he is the number one player in the country, and he still has long-term potential with it. So,
what have you heard about Duke's positioning with him and just their pursuit of yet again another number one recruit in the country?
Yeah, so his deal is kind of funny. He just made the move to Utah Prep in Hurricane, Utah, where he'll be playing alongside J.J. Mandikit, who has been there for a couple of years. But here, the main deal here is BYU is the school that is, kind of rumored to be the perceived favorite. So we'll see how this shakes out. Obviously, Blue Bloods will be in there because this is the number one player in the country. But, I've been hearing recently that BYU may be the team to beat just because, the affiliation, the collective that BYU has. They're going to – Kevin Young, a new head coach that came from the Phoenix Suns who has NBA experience, he's going to, make a big push at this. And, obviously all these kids want to get to the league. So AJ will definitely hear him out because why not go play for a coach that's been there before, especially in recent years. We're talking about a dude who was on staff with Kevin Durant, and AJ's a big wing who loves to score the basketball. So, BYU is a team to look out for. I know he took an official visit to USC. I believe he took an official visit to Auburn. So look for those two schools to be in there. But, with this recent move to Utah Prep, BYU has to feel good about themselves, moving forward.
What a world we could be living in if the top recruit ends up at BYU in basketball. But that's the latest news that you give us there on some of those top players. We've got other names to recognize in the Duke basketball recruiting world, and we'll do that with our pal Brandon Jenkins after we take one more timeout here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Thanks again for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen of the day. For your second listen, make sure that you check out Locked On ACC as we jump around the conference, giving you all the news and headlines that you need to be aware of. Next week is ACC kickoff, football right around the corner, so go make sure that you check out Locked On ACC. Also, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. We bring him back in. He's Brandon Jenkins from 24/7 Sports. He's on X, a.k.a. Twitter, at bjenkins247. Tell me about your coverage, man. What are you doing these days? What kind of work can people find from you and the rest? You got a great team over there at 24/7 Sports. Promote your work, if you will.
Absolutely. Well, I think today, I just came to the realization that we were everywhere this past weekend, whether it was New Balance's Prelude League, the Under Armour Association, Adidas 3SSB, Hoop Groups League, or the Nike YBL Peach Jam. We were in the gym covering as many prospects as humanly possible. And so, and I think that separates us from the rest of the industry. I think that we do a good job of being in the gym, getting recruiting updates, and also getting evaluation updates, for fans that really want to know about who their coaching staffs are prioritizing at this time and place and period. So, me personally, I was at the Nike Peach Jam for 4 days. I was able to get updates on official visits and also tap into some younger kids in the 26 and 27 classes. And so this week you can just see a lot of recruiting updates, a lot of stock riser updates from an evaluation perspective from each of us. I know as soon as I get off this podcast, I got to go cover some elite toddlers, as I call it, the rising sophomores in the class, just to show them some love before I head off to Under Armour tomorrow in Chicago to close out these live periods.
All right, so give me an update. 2026 really quickly. Some of the top players are also attached to Duke. Who comes to mind when you think about some of Duke's top targets?
Yeah, I think the one that stands out to me the most is Brandon McCoy. I know their staff is really into him. I know the assistant coach, Jay Lucas, flew out there in December to go watch him play at the Damien Classic. And when you think about him, he was a dude who was number one in our class. And I think he has a chance to, regain that spot. I think it's Tyron Stokes has it right now. But Brandon McCoy, he's loaded with upside, and he is a tremendous defensive talent. Offensively, he still has room to grow, even though he's still productive. He can get downhill and is very athletic, plays above the rim, has a good feel for the game. His shot has room for improvement, but he's very capable at this point. But defensively, he separates himself with his length, his timing. He just has natural instincts just to get stops. And he's just one that you do not want to be guarded by. He's a pest. And just with his size and his ability just to make defensive plays and poke balls loose, he's one that projects to be a great defensive stopper at the highest level of the sport. And so I would say look out for him. That's a big target that they're after. And he's a top 2 player in the country.
Yeah, remember the name 2026, Brandon McCoy Jr. All right, so if we talk about 2025, we mentioned the Boozer twins, the number 1 player, AJ DeBanza. All right, who are other names that Duke has got in the running as potential recruits and possible commitments?
Yeah, 3 names come to mind, and I guess we can decide how we want to break this down. I know in pre-show you mentioned the Caden Lewis. That's definitely one that picked up an offer last month. Sheldon Henderson picked up an offer last month. He's from, the Houston, Texas area, and he's coming along strong. And then Nicholas Kamania, that's somebody that the staff has really been prioritizing. And so, how do you want to break this down?
Yeah, let's go for it. Tell me about each of them. Tell me about a Caden Lewis first, then we'll go down the line.
All right, that's a bet. So a Caden is a guy who he's always been nationally ranked, but he made a jump from lower end 4-star status around that, ranked in the 80s to 90s range, to now he's pushing, I think he's somewhere in the 34 in the country. Don't hold me on that. I try to memorize those
up there. Yeah.
But
look how much it switches. You shouldn't be asked to memorize those rankings, Brandon.
Absolutely. A top 40 player in the country, though. A guy who has a high usage rate for his Team Durant team, but is proven in, having the feel to get others involved. Now, it's funny. It was funny to me because Duke offered after North Carolina offered. So I wonder if some of the beef is going, with
we
that.
Have to jump in.
At the end of the day, this kid can play. He has a slick handle, and he has great feel for, how to score. He's one of those exciting players to watch because he can really break down a defense in an exciting fashion. He has the shiftiness. He's gained some muscle, since I previously seen him in camp basketball period in September playing in the John Lucas camp. But, this dude is a guy with a slick handle. He can create offense on demand, and he's really confident in his ability. So it'll be interesting to see. I think he just released the top 8 a couple of weeks ago. And I know Duke is very interested in what he brings to the table. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out.
Okay, so Shelton Henderson, another name that you mentioned there from the Houston area. He's got a visit lined up to Duke coming this fall. What type of player is he?
A physical specimen who admittedly I struggled evaluating early. Early on as a freshman and sophomore, especially as a freshman, when I first seen him, he sticks out. He was 6'5" at the time as a freshman, which is insane, but he had this mature build. He's always been built like the Hulk. Dude, big arms, big cut-up arms, and they're long, big arms, strong, just physically mature. He's a physical specimen who's a man amongst boys in all settings, even as a freshman. But, he never really imposed his will on the game. It just seemed like, he was out there trying to figure things out, and then sophomore year comes, and, he kind of gains a little bit production, but he disappeared quite a few times. And then the times where I wouldn't watch him, I would get calls saying that this dude is a beast. And then, the same camp that I seen at Caden Lewis, the John Lucas camp in September, I got a chance to see his natural ability in more of an open floor setting. And I saw the upside that he brings. He's really, really gifted. And, over the past 8 months, he's really tapped into, sort of the alpha male that we've been waiting for. It hasn't fully kicked in yet, but he's loaded with upside. I mean, we're talking about now a 6'6" chiseled for a playmaking forward who can rebound, who can protect the rim, and who can make plays for others. He has big hands, and he shoots a soft ball, but, his jumper is not to the fullest level of accuracy as of yet, but it has room to grow. But he's a very versatile physical specimen who's loaded with upside. When you look at him, he's just one that he's going to have a chance to make it. He has a great support system around him. And, I think this is the one that Duke fans really need to be focused on, because I could see him ending up as a Blue Devil with the relationships. He plays for, Jay Lucas's father's AAU program, his father and his brother's AAU program in JL3 Elite. And he attends Jay Lucas's former high school. So all the relationships are there. And, I think the teams to beat will be Louisville, Houston, and Texas. But Duke is in a great standing with him. And they're getting a dude who has a tremendous upside. And, if I haven't already raved on him yet, his game compares favorably to Stephon Castle, a top 5 pick in this past year's draft, and Jarris Walker. I mean, when you think about just his ability to kind of, play the point forward role in spurts with that natural feel as a passer and that natural strength, you get the Stephon Castle vibes. And then also going back to the natural strength, Jarris Walker was built that way. He was a physical specimen. But I compare his game in Jarris's sense because he has great defensive timing and he pounds the glass. I mean, like, there's just so much things that this guy is capable of that he hasn't tapped into yet. And once he develops that alpha male, that killer mentality, just watch out because he's loaded with talent, and he's a dude that I personally think can push for top 10 status in the national class.
Yeah, you're telling us the stars are aligning for Duke, which hopefully it continues in that direction. And there are a lot of connections out there that could make this thing happen. All right, you mentioned a third player that's on Duke's radar.
Nicholas Kamania. And this is a guy who fits the Blue Devils mold now. I probably will botch the nationality of this kid, but I'm guessing it's some European descent, and he brings that type of vibe to the game. This is a dude who's extremely versatile with a great feel for those around him. The first time I seen him play was as a sophomore. And, on a team filled with upperclassmen, he was very vocal. He's about 6'7", a top 20 player in the country at that. But he's tough. He's a really good passer, and he's skilled. He has great footwork. He can play on the ball and is comfortable handling the ball through pressure. And he does so with poise. He also can make an open jumper. So he's another one who screams versatility, who can do a little bit of everything on the floor just to impact winning, and winning matters to him. He's a back-to-back CIF Open Division state champion. So he has a history of winning. He has a history of loyalty. He plays on the Puma Pro 16 circuit with BTI. He's been rocking with them for his high school career. And so this is just a well-rounded kid with a well-rounded game. He kind of brings everything. He's an all-around forward. And, who else would you want for a prestigious program like Duke? And that's why you're seeing, over 25 to 30 high major programs prioritize him.
Yeah, so many players kind of look like Duke guys. And I think Romania kind of looks like one of those guys too. So last one I want to ask you about in 2025. I'm seeing recently your colleagues over there, you think about Eric Fossey and Adam Finkelstein, the great work that you guys do. A lot of buzz lately with Braylon Mullins receiving a Duke offer, and I'm hearing them talk on recent shows that you guys do that Duke could be in. What type of player is Braylon Mullins, and could this be a possible fit for Jon Scheyer?
Yeah, Braylon is one who really came onto the scene during the start of the Adidas 3SSB circuit season. He is one who played for a team that was, I think, undefeated for the better part of the summer in Indiana Elite, and they're well coached. And he stars in his role to the max. He's one who can really shoot off the move well. He gets great lift on his jumper, and he does so with a very quick release and a quick trigger. But the thing that I love about him the most, outside of his shooting prowess, because he can make shots at a high level, is he can get off the floor with it too. I've seen him get off the floor and have some creative, exciting finishes at the rim. But he's one who can really just fill a role. And, if I haven't mentioned before, I'm big on demeanor, and he does so in such a well-poised demeanor. You could just tell that he's all business when he's on the court, and he knows what he's supposed to do. And he does so and projects to do so at a very high level. And so I can see why, Duke has offered him. In today's age, shooting is at an all-time prevalent high. And, Braylon is one who does so at a high level. And, if you can make shots, you can get recruited. And he does so at being 6'5". So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out, because he's getting recruited by the best of the best. Think of UConn. Dusty May has some action. He took a visit to Michigan. I believe North Carolina has offered him as well. He's getting offered by most. Indiana is going to be a team to beat. He's taking an official visit with his Indiana Elite teammates, so I'm pretty sure that'll be a fun experience. So, yeah, he's definitely one to keep tabs on. Just another shooter that translates to success in the ACC.
All right, last question for you. Kind of go back to what we talked about at the beginning. None of the top players at all right now currently have made commitments in the class of 2025. When you look at Jon Scheyer, it's about to be his third season as the head coach for Duke. And he's had a long thing running so far, having one of the top classes in all of America. Some might argue that in this era of the transfer portal, several scholarships could be left open for movement that you could have after the season. With that in mind, do you still anticipate Duke having one of the top classes in 2025, Brandon?
Absolutely. And, as I answer this question, JJ, I need to shed light on another person because there was 4, not 3, that Duke is targeting. I mentioned Braden Burries earlier in the show. This, and that's another one that Duke is going after. He's been on an unofficial visit to Durham. Yep. And they're after him pretty hard because he's a combo guard who is just one of the more consistent producers in a class filled with consistent producers. But this dude just imposes his will on the game. He's a physical slasher who loves to man the point guard position. He can also play off the ball, hit open shots, great feel for playing off ball screens. He's tough. And he loves to play. I feel like I've seen Braden Burries at least like 10 times this summer. He plays in different settings. So that's another prospect that Duke is after. But back to your question, yes, I think that they can cash in on a few of these recruits and have one of the best classes in the country like they usually do. And, they're doing a great job at identifying fit. Like I said, these 4 dudes that I mentioned, these are dudes that are wired to win. And you could just tell so in their approach to the game. So, I see them being up there with the best of the class. It'll just be interesting to see which ones that they get. And I'll also, just to give y'all more confidence, even if, the Boozer twins do end up somewhere else, I still think that Duke will still have one of the best classes in the country.
Can't wait. Yeah.
Just because they're prioritizing fit more than anything. And these are players that really, really are a perfect match for what they want to do, short term and long term.
I can't wait to see it all come together. Really excited for it. And Brandon, I can't say thank you enough for your time stopping by. Once again, remind people, where can they find all your work?
Absolutely. So, you obviously follow me on Twitter at bjenkins247, but I have to promote my Instagram. I got a lot of things popping on there. Your boy just started, getting in tap with Photoshop.
There we go.
Just for commitment updates and dudes that are playing well at events, follow me on Instagram at the same at bjenkins247. And obviously follow the site for, Eric Bossi, Adam Finkelstein, Travis Branham, and Deshaun London's work as well. They really work very hard in terms of covering the top basketball players in the country and making sure that these fan bases are getting taken care of. So please lock in with us at 24/7 Sports. We have the platform to shine a light, and we're doing so with the best of our ability.
I can't wait. We'll talk to you again soon, Brandon, okay?
All right. Appreciate you for having me on.
All right. That's Brandon Jenkins joining us here on today's show. And that's going to do it for our program here today. Great stuff. Duke fans, you heard it there. Be optimistic. I can't wait to see this class of 2025 come together. Hopefully we can get those Boozer twins. It's just weird to think about them not playing for the Duke Blue Devils. That'll do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.